2025 might be the year for the Fantastic Four, as they've been very popular in Marvel rivals, and they're getting their first film actually made by Marvel Studios. And they've always been pretty popular when it comes to the comics, but in terms of film, their history has been rough. If you go back 10 years ago to 2015, there was a Fantastic Four movie that wasn't very well received.
Horrible. 1 out of 10.
And 10 years prior to that, there was another Fantastic Four movie that kind of got mixed reviews, but it did well enough to make a sequel. And if you go 10 years before that to 1995, and then you go another year back to 1994, there was supposed to be a Fantastic Four movie that came out that year. It was meant to be the live-action debut for these characters, but it ended up not being released in theaters. So just to give you a little history on this film, it was made by the new Concord studio, and they had to make a Fantastic Four movie to maintain the rights that they had had for a while. So they gave this movie a low budget of $1 million, which even back then is not very much for a superhero movie of this type. And they filmed the movie and did some editing. They even released trailers and posters promoting it. All of the actors and the general public were under the impression that this movie was going to come out, which is a reasonable thing to assume, but it ended up being canceled and it was just not released in theaters because the studio never actually intended to release it. They just wanted to make it to maintain the rights. However, you can find pirated copies of this movie on DVD, as well as different websites, even YouTube. I've came across 3 different videos that have had the full movie. All of those videos I've came across have actually been taken down. One of them was really good too. Someone actually remastered it. But anyways, all this footage is going to be circulating the internet forever. And having seen this movie, here's what I think about it. So the story here is very straightforward. It's just about the Fantastic Four getting their power and becoming the team that everyone knows them to be. The very beginning of this film kind of explores some earlier stuff with these characters. It mainly focuses on Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom, and then it fast forwards like 10 years, and we explore when the Fantastic Four get their powers. To be completely honest, most of the plot points are kind of rushed, but hey, at least it's not boring. Reed Richards is fine in this movie. It feels like they got his personality right. I would say the same thing with Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman. I mean, it is pretty hard to mess these people's personalities up. Of course, you have Ben Grimm, aka the Thing in here. What they did with him was fine as well. He also kind of had a love interest in here, but they didn't really explore that enough, and so there wasn't really any good chemistry there. And overall, that whole side thing was kind of forgettable. I have to say, though, Johnny Storm is easily the best character in here. I mean, the actor playing him did a great job.
You're running off like naughty little children. I just can't allow that.
Yeah, well, who asked you, you overgrown tin can?
And so I think that's easily the best part of this movie as a whole. There's also this one villain in here called the Jeweler, who was basically meant to be the Mole Man. They wanted to have him in the movie, but they didn't have the rights. And of course, you have Dr. Doom in here. This honestly is kind of a comic accurate version of him, but at the same time, it also feels very goofy. I don't really think it's terrible when you actually compare it to the rest of the film. So there's not too much action in here for a while. Mainly the big spectacle here is just kind of some of the destruction going on, but just really not too much fighting between characters until the film's like halfway over. Then it gets pretty heavy on that kind of stuff. But the story is all kind of done in a way where the characters don't actually fight people with their powers with their costumes on until the final battle. There's some small fights that they have without their costumes on earlier in the film. So just to state the obvious, the special effects are not very good. Many moments are very laughable. Now, to the film's credit, they avoided using special effects as much as they could, which is also actually kind of a bad thing because it's about 4 people with superpowers where you have to use special effects. I will say though, when it comes to the costume design, the Fantastic Four costumes do look pretty cheap, but hey, they are pretty comic accurate. It's the same exact thing with Dr. Doom. And I will say I'm actually very impressed with the makeup design for the Thing. And also, I will say, some of the locations they filmed at, they did a pretty decent job of making them all feel pretty unique from each other. I mean, all the backgrounds that you have are visually pretty okay. But also, there's just a lot of bad special effects and VFX, especially with the Baxter building, which, by the way, why on earth did that just come out of nowhere in, like, the middle of the movie? To put it simply, the score here isn't anything too memorable. I can't really remember what it sounded like, although I do kind of remember it sounding better than I expected, but still, like, not great. There are some funny moments here and there, mainly kind of with Johnny Storm, but not really anything too notable or memorable. So overall, I will say there are some things this movie does right, but this is also a movie that was held back by its low budget and the fact that it was never supposed to even be released. I will say though, there is other Marvel stuff from this time period, like the Captain America TV movies. There's actually just a ton of random superhero stuff that you probably didn't know existed that's similar to this. And I would say out of all the ones I've watched, this is one of the better ones because it does feel pretty comic booky. It feels like it is trying to be accurate to the source material.
The Fantastic Four.
And just overall, it's not really boring because all the plot points are rushed. So overall, on the quality scale of 0 to 100, I'm going to give this movie a fantastic 44%, and I would definitely recommend it if you're interested. But if not, I completely understand. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.